It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And this week we have confirmed Superman Legacy casting, Mike.
Happened faster than I thought it would.
Boy, we had like theories last weekend, and then it came out, and then everyone sent it to me, and I'm like, hold on a second, let me check. So I went to James Gunn's page to make sure he said it was true first. So,
well, did you run out of tweets though? Because if you ran out of tweets, you wouldn't be able to read.
I just found out about that while we've been talking before this, Mike. So thank God I'm not on there anymore. Andor is taking us back to Naboo, and we'll look at a photo for that. So we have some links in our show notes today. Dune drops a trailer for part 2, Mike. Mm-hmm. And more.
Man, Chris out here like the wild, wild west shooter that he is, just jumping us into the podcast, a little inside baseball there is we usually try to start the recording. We start the podcast on 30-second intervals, and he saw like 31. He's like, let's go, go, go.
That's right.
So good thing I didn't talk over anything like that. I learned recently why Wild West people always did like tricks with their guns and stuff while they were always like spinning them around. They weren't necessarily trying to show off. It was they were developing like the tactile sensory feel for the weapons, because if you can get really, really good with doing all of these tricks, the odds of you ever just dropping your gun in a normal firefight in normal scenarios are like they plummet dramatically, because like that's the easiest, apparently that was the easiest way to die in the Wild Wild West, is you just accidentally drop your gun. So that's why they practice by doing all these tricks. So that's Chris shooting off the cuff at 31 seconds, jumping into the recording.
Well, I want to tell you,
he's been practicing for 400 episodes.
I will tell you 400, well, actually closer to 500 if you count our reviews. But I will tell you, it's funny you mentioned spinning guns around, because happy 4th of July week, everybody. Last night we were lighting off fireworks at my in-laws, and you have those safety lighters that you pull them, and they look like guns, right? They have a trigger, you pull it, and the light's on the end down there. So I have one of those with me. I'm just spinning around the whole night yesterday. I'm like spinning, flipping around. I'm like, all right, let's light this up and pop, 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 pop. And it's really funny you mentioned that, because that's what I was doing with that.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, keeping that lighter in your hand longer is probably going to be your undoing, rather than putting it down and not lighting something explosive.
Yeah, I have a better opportunity to not drop it when I'm lighting fireworks, Mike. So I'll take it. Well, I learned the tactile feel of this lighter beforehand. But happy 4th of July if you're listening to this on Monday, because you have to work, because on a Tuesday it's a weird day to have a holiday like this, and you're listening to us, happy 4th, and be safe, enjoy yourself out there, blow some stuff up. But anyway, Mike, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say there was a brand new animated movie that dropped this weekend, because apparently if you look at the box office out there, folks, nobody's going to the movie theaters at all this summer, and you can count me in on that list, because Chris will be talking about his trip to Indiana Jones here momentarily, whereas I did the opposite, and I stayed home in the comfort of my own living room with my TV, and I watched Netflix new animated feature Nimona, which it's weird to say it's Netflix's, because it's actually Annapurna Pictures, but before it was Annapurna Pictures, it was Disney at one point in time, and before it was ever Disney's, it was a graphic novel just created by an independent artist and storyteller. So it's crazy to see the chain that this movie has gone through, but it's great to see that it finally came out. It was a pleasant surprise watching it. I believe it did pretty good numbers for Netflix on its premiere, but we'll never know more beyond that, unless the writer's strike gets some concessions from Netflix and they actually start publishing numbers at some point in time. But we sat down and we watched it the other night and had like a really good time. It's like it's a kids animated movie, but it's got a little bit of edge to it. They're tackling storytelling that's a little bit more mature, so you don't really see that too often. the art style is interesting because you can feel that this art style is like a response to that very first, Spider-Verse movie that came out where they're trying to be a little bit more experimental. So they're just like, oh, we don't have to go with that Pixar look necessarily that everyone's doing. But, since it had production delays and they were caught up on some things, you could see that maybe they couldn't quite take it as far as maybe they wanted to. But overall, it was still visually pleasing. The voice cast was great. The story really picks up in the second half. Like, it feels very predictable at the beginning, but then it kind of takes a delightful turn towards the end, and it has a lot of heart to it. Like, I would say at very baseline, your movie is successful if at some point in time you touch my feelings, in some way, whether it's like fear or joy or like sadness or something like that. So I got that from this movie. So if the price of admission, like I said last week with Extraction 2, is purely just your Netflix subscription, this one's an easy recommend. It's an easy watch. You can definitely watch it with your kids. And I don't know if there's a sequel necessarily in the books, because I have the Nimona graphic novel that my brother got me for the holidays one year. I never got around to reading it. True laziness in my bones, where all I had to do was wait for a movie to come around. But I started flipping through the graphic novel last night after we watched it, and I was like, oh, it feels very tonally different. Like, the movie seems to be a little bit more cheerful and bright, where, like, the comic book pages of the graphic novel are a little bit more desaturated, and dark, and the art style is a little bit more what do I want to say, like indie, in a way. So I don't know if there's room there for more story, but I could recommend Nimona to you folks out there into the world.
Yeah, I just looked up no sequel plans yet, but I did see, because Annapurna is getting a lot of press this week, and they announced they're also going to be producing the very first video game coming up pretty soon as well. So
oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, so they say they're supposed to be making their own video games. I'm not gonna hold it against them, but the only movies I remember seeing them on Annapurna was they were part of was it Terminator Genesis. They were one of the co-producing studios. And do you remember the animated movie Sausage Party? That was just
they were Annapurna.
They're part of it. Yeah, they're co-productions on those guys.
Yeah.
So
it's funny because in the front of my head, since you brought up video games, is the last time I remember interfacing with Annapurna was with Stray, the cat video game.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty sure was Annapurna. So I guess they're just
I think
more of like a multimedia experience.
I think that's two different studios. I think Annapurna Interactive is a different one, but it could be maybe the same branch or the same person. Either way, that's pretty cool. So Nimona, and then what was it? Jake Extraction 2 is on there. So if you've got like a Netflix thing, I'm just saying that's great movies, right? Coming out on Netflix for everybody right now. So we haven't
watched it yet, but they added that second season of Is It Cake? Oh. So if you really want to see people make cake that looks like things, and we'll probably get around to watching that.
And we don't cover it here, but I believe the first half of The Witcher season 3 is on there this week as well.
It's so funny. We opened up Netflix and my wife saw the banner for The Witcher. She's like, "Oh, look, there's more Witcher." I don't have the heart to remind her we never finished watching the second season, and it's just like that's how I don't want to dog on it and say it's unforgettable. So I don't know if it's just maybe Netflix lack of marketing or just the staying power of the second season, but we just never got around to finishing it, and we don't even remember it.
They're doing the Stranger Things approach for this second one, doing it releasing 2 parts this month and next month. So, slowly getting to a release schedule for them. That's pretty cool. And again, since we're just talking about The Witcher, they're doing season 4 and 5 back to back with the new Liam Hemsworth actor instead of Henry Cavill, because he probably left to go be Superman again. And we'll talk about who isn't Superman later this episode. But so you watched Netflix. I went. Before we get there, you said you had an existential question for me before we even get into our first notes, and you kind of dropped a little bit of a hint on it here, right at the beginning. That's about something about the movie. So tell me what your question is before I get into talking about the theaters.
So I'll give you my existential question, Chris, and then maybe you can kind of roll it into your initial thoughts and opinions of Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny. My question is, Chris, how often, or if any recently, have you gone to the movie theaters and just had fun? I'm not talking about necessarily seeing a good movie or had the opportunity to sit next to somebody that just wasn't like an absolute maniac. I'm saying like you actually went to the movie theater and just honest to God had fun, because I don't know if that experience is just totally unique to just being a child, and once you get older you just don't get that feeling in the movie theater anymore. But like this comes down to one of the main reasons why I haven't seen Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny this weekend. It's just like I just could not drag myself to the theaters anymore. It's just so unfortunate that like the movie theater has just become not necessarily a fun experience anymore. And I keep leaning onto the word fun because it's kind of a more a blissful way to describe it. It's just everything just feels so stressful. I have a daily Far Side calendar comic, and the one I ripped off today was a man who's sitting on an airplane, and he's looking to the man next to him, and he looks kind of goofy and silly, and he says to himself, "Oh God, why do I always get sat next to these kind of people?" And the seat next to him is empty, and what he can't see is there's an even crazier, gigantic like insane person walking down the aisle about to sit next to him. And I'm like, yes, that's the feeling. That's it. When I go to a movie theater now, it's like when you're on a plane waiting to see who you're going to get stuck next to for the next 2 hours. And I feel like there's just so much anxiety. There's price around it. There's all of this anticipation and also like stress of having to get your tickets ahead of time, getting a good time slot, just trying to plan everything out, making sure you avoid spoilers. And I just realized with all of this stuff, I was like, when's the last time I went to the theater and had fun? Like, I feel like the last moment I can remember is probably Avengers Endgame. It's the last time I was at a theater and like really just had a good time, and it was a good experience overall. So I was going to ask you, Chris, when was the last time you would say you were in a theater and had fun? Like the word fun, F-U-N, like SpongeBob, you could describe that.
Literally, I would say the second time I watched The Flash, like a week ago, like 2 weeks ago. Like we are two different people. We come from different, similar backgrounds, but we're different people. I don't incur the stress of all the stuff that you just mentioned. Like it rolls off of me like water on skin, right? Like kind of thing. Like I don't
skin.
I don't. I was gonna. I'm thinking. I just was at a pool yesterday. Mike, leave me alone. But like I don't buying my tickets, picking time. I really don't have to worry about it. I just I just do it and I move on with it. And I think there are situations. I've had bad experiences where they're not fun, and it's usually mostly due to other people at the theaters, right? People who are on their phones, they're loud, they're obnoxious, they're annoying. But overall, I don't let it doesn't get to me, and I still have a great time. One of the cool things about when we moved 2 years ago, we are one stoplight / walking distance away from the closest movie theater that we go to now, and it's cool that I don't have to I love I think whenever I couldn't pre-select my seat, I was more anxious because I wanted to get there early to make sure I got a seat I wanted, or not miss out on getting tickets. So I think that advent has actually taken less stress off of me, and I just like to go. I like to have a good time. I think some things I think, and it's funny you mention this because I read an article about movie theaters are they're not coming back the way people the industry thought they would this year, right? Like they were like, all right, we got a bunch of movies, and they're right. A lot of movies should line up. If they put this into one of their Warner Brothers predictive analytics things, it's going to say this is going to make you a bunch of money at the movie theaters that we've always joked about. All of these would have been perfect examples, right? Indiana Jones, The Flash with Batman from '89, Guardians of the Galaxy, all these things, Spider-Man. Great. I think these would have been great, but I just don't think people are going back. And I think to me, what I think needs to be worked on is the actual venues themselves, if that makes sense. If I want to go to a movie theater, I would say the thing that always bothers me the most is how long does it take you to get your drink and your snacks if you want to get one at the counter, right? There's only 2 people only working there at any given time. So you're if you have to go, you have to go early. I don't like the wait to get in there. If I can walk in and just sit down and get to my movie pretty quickly, I'm thrilled. I'm happy. I'm pleased as can be. So I still have a good time. I don't mind going on a whim. If I'm I really want to see this. Let's see what's available today. Do we have anything in our schedule? No, let's roll over there. So to me, and how we operate here is more of a fly by the seat of my pants, if you will, and just roll with it. And I just don't. I still have fun. I guess that's it. I'm still having a good time. I do think the people are the problem at the end of the day. The idea of we've been in lockdown, we've been isolated for several years. Some people longer than others because they again, people work from home more frequently. They just don't go out. It's not necessarily that they're isolating, but like the people who do, they're very much in their own world 24/7 and not cognizant of everything around them and how it's affecting other people, especially in a movie theater, right? It's a premium event. You're paying to go to a venue to enjoy, or hopefully enjoy something, or at least experience something that it may not be 100% your way, but like you still want to get the best thing that you can. And I'm thinking about the Avatar. Did you not have fun in Avatar? I figured you would have had fun in Avatar. Is that
the movie itself was a good experience, but everything else was a little bit of a stressor.
I knew the people sucked for you, right? But yeah, everything to me just not. I guess I'm not in the same wave. Like we're like a yin and yang of the whole theater going experience.
You do bring up a good point though when it comes to everyone kind of has like these different expectations when it comes to a movie theater, right? But I think we are hitting on something that is very similar, where we all want something out of a theater, and I think the reason why maybe we've all become, I don't want to say necessarily picky in a way, because I think we should be guaranteed a positive going experience if you're paying money for it. That's your right as a consumer. It's that there's never been as much competition before for the movie theater space out there. So there's like a million different reasons you could say why, like, because I believe Indiana Jones is kind of underperforming, or it's on the lower end of its projections. The DreamWorks new animated movie that came out this weekend was the lowest animated movie weekend they've ever produced at that studio. Obviously, people have been talking about The Flash for a couple of weeks now with its response. So, if you wanted just to distill the commonality between all of those, it's just people just aren't going to the theaters to watch it. They just have other things that they could be doing. It could just be they're lazy and they're just on their phone scrolling through TikTok, which is something I do all the time, or they got plenty of things to watch through all the different streaming services they have at home.
It's also, I would think, and this is something we probably complained the opposite about 3 years ago, is there's too many movies out right now. Like, what do you choose when you go out there, right? Like, you got Spider-Man, you got The Flash, Guardians is still in theaters, Indiana Jones, there's several movies still in theaters that they're lengthening those windows to streaming, so they're going to be in here for 2 months, 3 months now. But like, there's just too many choices. If you are on a budget, or you only want to go to the movies once a month, or however frequently you can, you're not going to go see all of them, right? Like this is a very condensed window with a lot of choices. Was it The Flash came out and they had Elemental that weekend as well, like a Pixar movie, right? We have Transformers still. There's just so much. You mentioned, was it My Life as a Teenage Kraken? Is that the movie it's called? I didn't even know that existed until I think I saw The Flash the first time, or the second time. Like I'd seen no trailer. So I think you're right. Like, are consumers paralyzed by choice and just under the assumption, and this is a fair assumption, that I can stream it on one of my services if I just wait another month or two? And for most families and most people, that's probably okay with them, right? They don't have that desire to go out and watch it immediately. They probably watch the rest of the other things if it's a franchise in the same manner. So no need to really go out of your way and spend extra money. You're looking at $15 per person per ticket sometimes. And we would say 10 times drinks times snacks. If you have a family with kids, you're out like $150 just going to watch a movie. So like,
just wait for that mermaid to drop on Peacock, and you're going to save a ton of money.
Exactly. And honestly, when movies underperform at the theaters, guess how quickly they end up on streaming services, right? Much faster. So I think, honestly, consumers might be trained to just not watch it and wait for those streaming events. Which is sad, because I love cinema, and there should be opportunities for other non-blockbuster films to get out there. I know Wes Anderson, he's a bigger name. He's not a small name, right? He makes big movies. I have not even seen his movie on any like theaters near me that I know of walking in.
It's funny that you bring it up because his latest movie is actually, I saw a headline where it's being very successful because compared to the budget and the screens that it's released in, it's doing really well. He had his I think it was his biggest opening weekend for any movie that he's ever made. Yeah. And I think that also comes down to that style of audience as well. Like, no, I don't think anybody casually goes and sees a Wes Anderson movie, right? These are a very specific type of audience and also an adult audience as well. You don't have to worry about worrying like, oh, my child is going to wait until the next Wes Anderson movie hits streaming. They don't even know what the movie is to begin with. So
that's how I view. This is exactly how I feel Oppenheimer's gonna play out. Right, like you're not taking your kids to see a Nolan film, right? They're almost pushing 3 hours long, and sometimes like the slowest burns you've ever seen on screen. But at the same time, there are fans of that of Christopher Nolan and his work who will be there in droves to watch that on opening weekend. Hell or high water. So and like Wes Anderson, I would say Nolan also puts out consistent work, right? Like at Nolan's worst, people may crucify him. Interstellar is not my favorite movie of his, right? He's got other good ones. I really enjoyed Tenet. Some people didn't enjoy Tenet. They like Interstellar. Like, he still does great work at the end of the day, right? His worst is still above average in terms of movies. And I would say the same thing goes for Wes Anderson. But like the whole point of that is fans are coming to watch that, right? And you would think that would be the anecdote for Indiana Jones, but at what point does are there diminishing returns for a franchise / I'm coming out to see a character I loved who was only big in the 80s kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. But this was the perfect preamble, Chris, for how was Indiana Jones this weekend?
Indiana Jones is an interesting film. We have this is not a bad thing, simply because it's now in theaters, and we have not had an Indiana Jones since Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which is 2008 era. Mm-hmm. And that movie, it is not. Everyone doesn't remember everything fondly about that, but I still insist it lives fine within the Indiana Jones universe, right? Like, it is still. It's about aliens, and that's fine because literally we dealt with gods and demons and other stuff in the other Indiana. Like, there's a guy who's giving out holy water to drink and you can live forever kind of deal. So like, I think it's fine. But like, this way we come and meet Indiana Jones. I would say the first act of this, Mike, is it opens with a historical Indiana Jones scene, a flashback, if you will. And the de-aging on this, like we've seen in the trailers, spot on. They really did some magic with that, and it's really fun to see young Indiana Jones do this. Thank God that I think they used a younger actor because he doesn't move like an 80-something-year-old man,
like a de-aged Sam Jackson,
like Captain Marvel. Yeah, exactly. Or Secret Invasion if you're watching recently. I think it's a fun journey. It's a little bit of it's not as quick and doesn't use his time as well as I would say Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, right? Like, that movie, every second of that movie is used to push it forward. And and there's action scenes, and this, I think some of the action scenes and set pieces last, a little bit longer than they should. But, it's still fun to get back in with Harrison Ford being Indiana Jones. He's really into it. It's above average, but I'm not going to be like, this is the best one. This didn't reinvigorate the franchise of Indiana Jones at the end of the day, but it is fun. It was a good time. My wife, thank God she doesn't listen. She's like, it had me crying at the end. I'm like, well, that's good. Like, that's what you want out of a movie, right? Like, we talked about, you want to feel something, you want to have an emotion. And I'm like, good. Like, that's awesome. So I think there's some really, really cool points. The new actress, I cannot remember her name for the life of me.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Yes, yeah, she's great actress, great addition to this as well. So, absolutely a good time, and this is probably going to be where they probably don't have to go see it in theaters, Mike. Like, I think it's like if you are one of those people who like, I need to go, I can't go see movies. Do I have to? I say you probably don't have to. You can probably wait till hit streaming and watch it with the other Indiana Jones. But like, it's still, if you're a fan, you've probably already seen it, or you're waiting for like maybe your 4th of July holiday to go watch it. It's fine. I think you'll still enjoy yourself. along the ride for Indiana Jones. So overall, like I said, I'm not going to drag it on. It's hard to talk without spoilers. Mads Mikkelsen, always a villain of all, of everything he's ever in, right? Except Star Wars, he was actually a hero.
He was like he was like kind of a good guy. He was like a good guy, but also bad guy.
He built the Death Star, but he left the exhaust port open.
But he didn't like it.
He did a great job. James Mangold, the guy from Logan, the bad guy with the robotic arm, I forget the actor's name. He was in Predators as well, right? He's in this as a villain, and you just love to hate that guy. Like he is it's a very strongly acted movie all around. So that's I don't want to talk spoilers because I don't want to get into anything, but it is definitely a Indiana Jones movie at the end of the day. I think people, if you this is better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull if you really don't like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So that'll get you going. But go see it for yourselves if you want to. Let me know what you think. Let's shift gears into some news. And the biggest thing, one of the biggest superheroes ever, Mike, is Superman. One of the longest lasting, one of the most universally recognized by most audiences. Children know Spider-Man and Batman more. Let's not forget that. But Superman Legacy, the upcoming James Gunn written and directed, because he can hire and fire himself now as the president of DC Studios, has gotten casting for both Superman, Clark Kent, and Lois Lane, Mike. And actor, I don't know this actor from anything I've ever seen, and you may be able to fill me in. Actor David Corenswet will be Clark Kent / Superman in this. But I do know Rachel Brosnahan, who will be Lois Lane from The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So
yeah, I've brought her up on the show before because her show Maisel just wrapped its series finale recently. I think she's going to be a great Lois Lane. She's got the tenacious quality that I think Lois really needs to have. You need somebody that's really going to put themselves out there and, for better or for worse, kind of put themselves in unintentional danger trying to get that story, and also just kind of like not put up with any bullshit. I feel like that's a really good quality of Lois Lane, and she does that perfectly, amazingly. So I think that's a great casting. Yeah. And you are correct. The David Corenswet, I looked at that guy and I was like, I've never seen that man before in my life. I went on IMDb and I was like, well, he's done some things, but they all seem to be kind of like younger bent, kind of like Netflix, kind of like, I don't want to necessarily say teen dramas, but that's just kind of the vibe I got when I was looking at his profile. I could be totally wrong, but I was like, oh, this explains why I've never seen him, because I just don't watch anything that he's been in. But this is kind of why I love casting like this, right? This is why I'm so glad that, the fan casting, that a lot of the internet doesn't always go its way, because I've never seen this man before in my entire life. But the first time I saw him was with an announcement that he's going to be Superman. I looked at him, I was like, damn, that guy looks like fucking Clark Kent. That looks like Superman to me. Like, so he looks so much like it. He's got me tongue-tied trying to explain how I feel. So it's just like, this is great. This is like what casting directors and departments and everything, this is what they're for. They're out there putting in the work, because a normal human being cannot watch everything and identify the best casting and make the best memes to put like a, put a campaign out there to get them hired. So I was like, this is great. This looks exactly how Superman should look. I like the kind of the younger bent on it. I get kind of like, mid-20s kind of out of this character. So, and I believe we've been told it's going to be Superman that's not starting out from like year one, but maybe like they've been in it for a little bit, but they're still, And I think they've also kind of said, I don't know if this came out the same week or if it was like a rumor or what, but supposedly this Superman is supposed to come of age with heroes already existing.
Yes, we've talked about them casting the Authority with this movie as well, and introducing characters from the Authority, the other superhero group that's supposed to be in James Gunn's existing DCU, because that's also a film that's coming out as well.
Yeah, so I kind of like that. It's almost it's almost kind of like the Watchmen approach, where it's like you have these heroes that exist, then all of a sudden this godly like hero appears out of nowhere and shakes things up narratively, where the MCU went the opposite direction, right? We had our first hero appear, and then all the other heroes started to crop up and the world started to change. So I kind of like this narrative direction. It'll be a little different than what we've been used to in the other universes, where it's just like, okay, yeah, how does kind of like normal superheroing and villaining change when somebody with like truly godlike powers arrives on the scene?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Invincible, right? The season 1 show, like where like there are heroes. There's already a council of quote unquote heroes, and then our main character of Invincible has to like find himself in this world of existing heroes and villains, right, kind of thing. And that's kind of what this kind of feels like. So that to me, I agree, that's a good start here. For David Corenswet, I did see, I'd not watched this, but he is in the show or in the movie Pearl, which I know was like a really good movie that came out.
Yeah, that was a successful indie hit.
Yeah, there was like Maxine is the sequel. There was one before that, before Pearl. But
yeah,
like 3 of them.
They shot them at like the same time. Yeah.
So I think that's he I would say people have known he's unknown. I did send you a photo. I don't have it linked here because it's on Twitter, and we're not linking Twitter in our show notes anymore, Mike, because people may not be able.
Why would we?
You can't see them, so we're not going to do it anymore. But I did send Mike a screenshot of a guy, Kunal B, predicted on December 1st, 2020, a Superman reboot starring David Corenswet as Superman and Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane. And I'm like, that guy predicted this like 2.5 years ago. He's gonna get a no prize, but by God, that's hella predictions, from.
Yeah, I'm just like, where do you turn in that clout for cash? Because that's a solid prediction. They should have put money down in Vegas somewhere if that's even even a thing. But overall, I think this is exciting. This is exciting casting. This gets me going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's. I wouldn't say it's inspired by any means, but really cool. Again, they look the parts. Rachel Brosnahan, she's. I know the personality she puts off, right? I've seen from at least the trailers, even from Maisel, so I think she'll be great as well. So 100% agreed. Shifting gears, Captain America: Brave New World, Mike. This movie starring Harrison Ford, from Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny himself, will be in here. Filming as principal photography has wrapped on this movie, which is great because with the current writer's strike going on, productions are wildly sporadic on whether they're going on or finishing or even happening right now. So I think that's a good sign that they're going to be able to meet their targeted release date of next fall for this movie along the way.
Hopefully they don't have to do any sort of creative writing in the editing process, because that would be against the guild the guild strike. So, but they still have time, right? There's still time to.
Even if, hopefully the strike wraps up sooner than later, and they can get a resolution and give livable wages at least to the writers, for fuck's sake. They at least, if they get this done in like 2 months, 3 months, they have time to do. They probably have planned pickup shots, right, and they can make some notes then. So I'm not worried about that too bad.
Also, we're kind of in that second backlash wave of just like Marvel quality in general, where we're kind of just getting past the production issues that came with the pandemic, right? And then we're also kind of just getting past the creative issues that came with Chapek's regime. So this movie was kind of split in the middle, especially with production, right?
Yeah.
So I'm still really hoping and waiting to get on the other side of these kind of like tectonic blasts that hit our MCU,
And I think what's cool about this one, again, not only are we getting the Falcon, or I guess what's his name, Sam Wilson as Captain America, we get his new Falcon, but again, like I said, Harrison Ford as General Ross coming back, most of the Incredible Hulk cast, right? Tim Blake Nelson as the leader in this, the Serpent Society is making an appearance, and just a lot going on, and I think that's cool. I do think that this will be a prequel, Mike, for an inevitable World War Hulk movie, right? Because we know we talked about the Universal rights reversing back with the Incredible Hulk coming back to Disney Plus and stuff. So like I feel like they're setting up some future notes with this movie, and again, like you mentioned, hopefully it fires off on all cylinders, and you know they're able to deliver a quality product by next year. On the flip side, though, some interesting notes, because I love how fast the tabloids, if you will, the digital tabloids can turn on news back and forth, right? Fantastic Four, the newest rumor / report that no cast is finalized for this movie yet, despite us like saying like 3-4 weeks ago, yeah, they got all 4 of them picked up, right? So the biggest thing is that Adam Driver has priced himself out of the Reed Richards role for this franchise. So that 65 movie must have really been a huge hit for him to turn down MCU money. And then that Margot Robbie actually just turned down the role of Susan Storm on her own accord.
I wonder if possibly it was both financially related. I mean, Margot's got Barbie coming out soon. It seems like it's going to be a big financial success just with all of the hype that I've seen on the internet around it. And also it's a relatively unique movie coming out. Obviously it's based on pre-existing property, but it's unique. We haven't seen anything quite like it. So maybe she's just like, yeah, I should be getting paid more. I'm about to have like this big like boost in my credibility and my box office draw.
Yeah,
so
I think she's. I mean, I think she's stable enough. You know her name when you see you know her face. I think she could turn it down without money, right, or anything like that. But maybe, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to kind of like turn on my like CEO accounting brain, which I don't like doing often because it hurts. It hurts my soul and it hurts the folds in my brain. But I would think now you're Marvel. You have all of this credibility and you have all of this power out in Hollywood and the box office, right? You don't necessarily need the most well-known actors to portray these very well-known characters, right? We just saw James Gunn hire a dude for Superman that we ain't never even heard of before, right? So I mean, if you're just looking for like return on investment, especially you're going to want these characters around for a while. You're not just hiring them for one movie. You're hiring them for like 20 movies and possibly, some Disney Plus series as well. So yeah, I could see like how the price could balloon very, very quickly if you need them to be in multiple things over multiple years. So yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, I'm not surprised, but also like these obviously were never as final as we all thought they were, going off of Hollywood rumor mill.
In 2 weeks, guess what? This may turn around like, all right, they worked it out. They've all figured this out. This is all just, they're all
this could be a negotiating. Yeah, this could be a tactic of like, let's put this out there that things are falling apart, see how the internet reacts, and if it's bad, it'll go well for us. Like, no, I can't believe you're letting Adam Driver go. I hate Marvel now. Or, I'm sure there's a tweet out there if they could possibly share it with anybody. They'll have to screenshot it.
Exactly. If you can read it, if you haven't hit your limit for the day, Mike. But also on the flip side of this, the newest report, and this name has popped up before, is actress Vanessa Kirby, who's in Mission Impossible 6 and 7, so Fallout and the new one, the last two, if you will. And Hobbs and Shaw is next in line for Invisible Woman. She was always in the running for this, and her name's always been there, and they asked her even recently. She's like, it would be an honor to play that role. So, she may be their go-to for that. And, honestly, I think she's a great action actress. So I could see her playing Susan Storm, Miss Invisible Woman in this universe, just as well as Margot Robbie, if you will. And I wouldn't say she's an unknown, but probably, as you mentioned, like, we can, if we do a good story, we can make any actress work for this role, right? Where we have great casting, directors. I've never really had a feeling of miscast in Marvel, right? At any given time, so I trust the powers that be to pick someone who's going to do the role justice. So, any thoughts on that?
I had to Google Vanessa Kirby real quick, so I'm just scrolling through pictures, and it's just like, this is like very strong Invisible Woman vibes. Like this, I feel like she already looks like the comic book panel. So yeah, this would be a good running start.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone's like, oh, who'd you pick as Reed Richards yourself? I'm like, I don't know, go back to John Krasinski. See if he'll do it. Maybe we can keep that train rolling down the road. But yeah, it's fine. This is cool. Whenever they tell us who the cast is, we'll let you guys know, and we'll all rejoice together with whoever they pick. Deadpool 3 is filming, Mike. I don't know if you knew this. They're still rolling in London over there, despite the writer's strike. But we all have talked about this till we're blue in the face. Ryan Reynolds, most of his jokes he's got the mask on. They can ADR any of his jokes in after everything's done. They can write them later. Totally fine. But we're going to re-up the rumor that Owen Wilson will be playing Agent Mobius from Loki in the TVA in this movie as well. He has been spotted in London, where filming is happening on the movie. And apparently another actor, don't know his name, will be playing a TVA agent from the comic books called Paradox. So it sounds like this is going to be very multiversal, spanning a lot of actors, characters, different things in this film going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's ever been officially confirmed anywhere, because I know we've talked about it on the show, but it seems to be heavily implied that, this is Deadpool going to be hopping and bouncing around different multiverses or timelines or whatever you want to call it, and maybe he'll even make a joke to the effect of like, are we going to a multiverse or are we going back in time? And then someone's going to say, I don't care, show me the cocaine or something along those lines. But yeah, I loved Agent Mobius. I mean, I feel like I've been reminiscing of the time not too long ago where I was looking forward to the Marvel Disney Plus shows, and Loki might have been the last time I feel like I saw anything that I really, really liked on Disney Plus. So I really liked Agent Mobius there.
Yeah, Loki's coming up, and Owen Wilson will be returning from that this fall. We have a release date, right? It was October, I think it is. October through November, and then Echo drops. So absolutely. I think, if anyone's going to make fun of the everything being a multiverse and / time travel this year, right? Like that's the hot movie topic for everything going on. Deadpool's going to be the one that skewers that concept to its maximum capability.
And you just mentioned Invincible as well. I think the second season is supposed to be dabbling in multiverse as well. So either the audiences are really liking it, or we're about to get tired of it real quick.
Yeah. I could see that. Well, Marvel's kind of gone all in with it, but we'll see. With Bob Iger back at the helm, if they change up some of those plans, right, for the storytelling aspect, but. Deadpool 3, I'm excited. It says dropping next May, so it'll be the first MCU movie we get next year. I think the first superhero movie next year that I can think of, unless they drop Hellboy in January. So,
oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And Madam Web's somewhere in there too, but I don't care about it enough to look it up right now. Moving on to Andor, Star Wars, one of the sleeper hits for Star Wars that we've come full circle, or not full circle, we did a 180 on. We have a new photo / video from their filming going back to a new place that stood in for Naboo for episode 1, Mike. I guess it's Hever Castle in England. And if you look at this, it looks a lot like Naboo, doesn't it? With like the lake and the stones and the intricate designs, everything. But
isn't it so weird having nostalgia for Naboo and the prequels, even though we grew up to not like the prequels? But now that I start to get a little bit older, I feel like I'm coming back around to them again. Well, it's so weird. Yeah. It's such a weird relationship to be a millennial that grew up with the prequels. Like it's just cultural. It's just whiplash with that IP. I don't think we grew up to hate them. I think there were characters we were like not supposed to enjoy, right? Or ideas, not necessarily the locations, because I think George Lucas builds really good lived-in worlds, and Naboo felt like a lived-in world, right? Like it felt like you knew exactly what it was supposed to be and what it was supposed to look like, and I think they nailed that. And like this these photos of this, like I saw the first photo, like a thumbnail, I'm like, oh, that's Naboo. It's got to be. Look at it. Look at the designs. So I think he did a great job with those. But also, distance makes the heart grow fonder, Mike. So the more, the farther out you are from rewatching those, the more you might like, oh, I like to revisit those, and then you're like, that's not as bad as it used to be. But I would say, look at this. I also was like, I don't know what part of the movie this was in, right? Well, that's because it was a deleted scene from episode 1 that they released on the DVDs, Blu-rays later. So that's why
It's not exactly familiar, but the architecture really lines up with the vibe of that movie. So I was going to have to go say, like, I wonder, and someone else is going to know the answer because I never did this. On Disney Plus, do they have deleted scenes from Star Wars in those when you go to those movies?
God, I don't know. That's a good question.
Because I know some movies get those features, right? Like I know, Marvel movies get the IMAX ratio, but there's also extra features there as well when you go to those. So I'm going to have to go see if maybe they have some Star Wars ones on there. If not, guess what? I'm going to have to whip those discs off the shelf, Mike. Pop them in. Use that physical media for once to see what they use that for. I have been literally watching probably the first Dune movie, like an hour of it today when I was sitting around. And for those who don't know, I run a little media server locally, and I have to do some computer repair on it, so I've got my scalpel gloves out. But to test it, I ran a 4K version of Dune through that computer, Mike. Like full, like,
and it exploded.
It did not. It actually ran it pretty smooth. No ping on anything at all, which was great. So I was watching Dune, and then I remembered, why am I so obsessed with Dune right now? Oh yeah, Part 2 trailer released this week. And for those who may not have caught the first part of Dune, which would be Mike, this Part 2 trailer really shows off the second half of the first book, which is a lot more action scenes, as you can probably get from watching this trailer. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like I saw this note in the show that it looks like there's a possible another part coming after this one, and it's like the whole strategy here for me was to wait till the second one came out so I could just watch part 1 and 2 and get it all. But it sounds like that strategy is not going to work.
so I will tell you right now, so part 3 has been confirmed by Deadline. So that's the other bit here. This was the other day. So Deadline, their exact words are, the new trailer for part 2 of this planned 3-film saga based on Frank Herbert's classic sci-fi novel. Well, the rumors, not the rumors, the people who read this are going around saying that the second or the third movie will be based on the second book by Frank Herbert called Dune Messiah. So Dune Messiah is actually like half the size of Dune. Like if you had them on a shelf, like in terms of length, Messiah is half the length of the first book. So it's a much shorter novel, and there's a little bit of a time jump in it. So I could easily see Denny taking first book, doing part 1 and 2, and then working with the same cast of actors to do a part 3 with a little bit of a time jump.
So what you're saying, with part 1 and part 2 combined, I'll be getting a complete story, where the biggest critique of part 1 was it didn't feel like you got a full narrative in a way. So, okay.
Yes.
So it seems like part 3 is coming from a totally different book.
Yeah.
It seems like I'll have the narrative satisfaction to watch part 2, and then I'll be hooked, and I'll stick around and watch the third one at some point in time.
Yeah. So when part 1 came out in late 2021, it made $400-something million at the box office, enough to give them money to make part 2. I also believe if part 2 doesn't make enough money this November when it drops, that part 3 probably won't get made. But I feel this is Denny's Avatar, right? This is his Avatar franchise, Mike. There are enough Dune books and lore for him to just keep rolling with this franchise forever if he wanted to.
And I feel like even though the first Dune came out during the pandemic, streaming only,
I
felt like it's
a lot of money.
I felt like it's done a pretty good job staying in like the zeitgeist, right? It's not like people have forgotten about it and then they're like, oh, another one's coming out, I already forgot. So it seems like the quality was good enough for people to still be on their minds.
This is a movie. If I want to show off my home theater system, I put on this movie. This and Blade Runner 2049, which is also a Villeneuve movie, right? So like he is this he is like a new Nolan, if you will, like the master. Like what he does, there's no accent, there's no.
He's become auteur level.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly.
You'll see anything they make.
Yeah, it's visually perfect. The sound level, the sound mixing, everything is on point with this. So I recommend part 1 before you get into part 2, Mike. But if you can't totally understand, but I still think part 1 is so engrossing to watch. It's got a great cast of characters, great everything about it's perfect. So the acting is fantastic. So Yeah, so if part 3 comes along and we get Dune Messiah, I would be very interested in how they do that. Not to spoil anything, but there's a time jump because the novels are not like sequential, right? They're not like boom, 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 like Game of Thrones. So there's a little bit of a time jump, not a lot, so they could have the same actors. But I'd be interested to see if they do, in fact, do that, and hopefully it's not the other part where like, oh yeah, we decided to split the back half of a book into 2 movies as well. Like, right, like you're like, okay, I got the first half, and then I got another quarter, and then part 3 is another quarter. I think that would really suck because I've seen clips in this trailer that tell me that they're telling the full story of the book. Like, the trailer has scenes that I'm like, oh, this is later in the book, so I know they're not going to hold anything back for us. So that makes me feel Dune Messiah is a good theory to lean into. But did you watch this trailer? I know you have no idea what's going on in it, but I didn't know if you watched it or not.
I just keep seeing screenshots of the pale white Austin Butler,
Faye Rotha,
which
yeah.
I'm just like, all right, I'll check that out. That dude looks weird enough.
There are a couple of scenes in there where it's like black and white, right? The ones you've probably seen look very, very black and white. So I'm interested to know if that's the planet they're on, and where if that's the color on that planet, or what he would look like when he gets to Arrakis, the planet Dune, with the actual yellow sunlight, and if he looks any different. So very excited to watch this. The Boys, Mike, The Boys, that show on Amazon that is still going after all these years. And that's not anything against it at all, but they are not going to give us a release date until the writer's strike is over for the next season 4.
Yeah, hold it hostage. Don't let them get what they want until the writers get paid.
Yeah.
It is funny though. I keep forgetting that Amazon Prime Video needs to be recontextualized in your brain along the same lines of like Apple TV, where it's like these are like ancillary services to like a bigger kind of business model and program, right? Where you could theoretically run these at cost or even a loss to just get people to stay within like your consumer loop, if you will. Whereas all the other streaming services, it's like more of a one-to-one. We make something, you pay for it and watch it in a way. So they do have that little bit of an advantage over at Amazon Prime. It's just like, yeah, we'll throw money at Lord of the Rings stuff. We'll throw money at The Boys. Maybe we can even wait a little bit to give you a release date because we don't make money like all the other places make money.
I think the bigger thing here is like, this is a show, probably not just the showrunner. I assume that the studio or the Amazon is probably the person who says, the company that says, this is when we're going to release it, right? Like they don't, they're the one making the choice. But to stand behind the showrunner and be like, yeah, well, you don't want to release it till the writer's strike over, that's fine. Because Amazon's strictly a streaming service. Like I find that fantastic that the streaming service is behind that whole premise here. So
also too, as we said before, The Boys might arguably be, if maybe not even arguably, maybe it's factual, the most successful thing that Amazon Prime has ever done when it just comes to popularity, critical reception, driving subscriptions, right? So they're just like, yeah, we're gonna keep the people that made this show happy because of it. We're making spin-offs. We maybe want them to make like a feature film at some point in time, right? So yeah, they got the leverage, which is good.
Yeah, I'm just kind of running through here looking at stuff on Amazon Prime Originals, right? That Citadel show probably did not do the numbers they wanted to do, right?
Yeah, did not make it past the first episode.
Yeah, Rings of Power, however you feel about that. Good Omens is getting the second season on there. But it took forever. Jack Ryan with John Krasinski's ending, his last season just debuted or is debuting. The Boss show is over, right? I think that wrapped up as well.
It's the sequel series has moved to Amazon's free service, the Freevee. Okay. So it's kind of technically there, but kind of isn't.
Yeah, I'm just kind of rolling through some of these, trying to figure out some of these shows I've never even heard of. Some of them I have. So, yeah, I think there is... The Boys is the big one, right? There's nothing else we would say. You got to go watch this on Amazon Prime. The Boys is the one we would tell you to go watch there. So I think they need to hold on to that and not really ruin that experience as long as they can, if they can help it. So, yeah, absolutely. We'll let you guys know when the release date's dropped, and we'll be there watching it with you. So let's end the show. We're going to talk about Secret Invasion Episode 2. A little discussion here. Just free-form discussion. There will be spoilers. So if you've not seen Secret Invasion Episodes 1 or 2, you should probably go watch them on Disney+, come back, and then you can listen to these. Otherwise, we're not going to hold anything back. It's not that we're really out here spoiling stuff, but the conversations just flow easier if we can just talk about it right out the gate here. So you actually put this in here in the notes. I wasn't going to bring it up, but I have thoughts and feelings, and it seems that you do as well. So I'd like to get into it.
I mean, I just figured like it's still billed as a mini series when you look it up online. So we never know if it'll stay as a mini series. So basically, that means there's only 4 episodes left. So it just kind of seemed like it's an easy ask to just check in on a weekly basis. Yeah. And also with it being a holiday weekend here in the States, not a ton of news. So like we got the room to talk about Secret Invasion Episode 2. And it also just kind of harkens back to what I was talking about last week. There's 2 ways that I'm still looking at this show, through like an entertainment point of view, and then also just like, what are some cool like lore tidbits that we can pull from this. It seems like they're leaning towards like the super scroll idea.
So I immediately saw there's a scene in this where what's her name, Emilia Clarke's character is on a computer. And
isn't it Gaia?
Gaia, yeah. I want to say Clea. Yeah. I'm like, it's not Clea, it's Gaia. But I was like, okay, she's on this computer and it's showing like, DNA samples from larger events in the MCU at large, right? Going back even to Thor: The Dark World. And I'm like, I know what they're doing with this. They're doing DNA sequencing, and there's all these different abilities. I'm like, Mike's gonna love this. Like, to me, and I could be wrong, you may not love this, but if you wanted lore of how to get a Super Scroll, here's where your Super Scroll comes from. I guarantee.
Yeah. And I like that. I thought it was really smart. It's a clever way to do it where, you don't necessarily have to bring in like big heavy hitters like the Avengers to explain it. And then also too, like, I feel like since we've had the ability to watch everything that has happened in the MCU for the most part, I could just be like, you can't just go get Captain America's like DNA. He's just not a guy that like will let you take it,
right.
And I suppose it could.
They already did that in Captain Carter.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose it could be in a vault somewhere, but like these heroes have been relatively untouchable. So I do like the creative problem solving of just like, let's just go get the supernatural garbage that's just kind of been littered throughout the landscape. So I like that. I like that lore side of things too. So I like that lens, but I was giving episode 1 a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because it was the first episode. They were just getting things going. And the second episode, slightly better, but I'm not giving it the benefit of the doubt anymore. So this show is not necessarily going in the direction that I would like it to go. It's just not very exciting. And I've seen some people online say like, you got to be in the headspace of it, it's a slow boil, they're taking their time. But I'm just like, there's 4 episodes left. Like, what do you mean take your time? If this was a movie, we'd be at the end of the first act already, and I feel like they barely got the engine above like second gear.
This is 100% the first act. I mean, I actually am impressed they pulled out the, like, we all know, and anyone watching knows the secret, the Super Scrolls are coming, right, from this episode. I thought they would pull that out at episode 5, like at the end of 5. They're like, okay, and then 6. So I'm glad they pulled that forward. We also got Don Cheadle in a more advanced capacity in this one, which I didn't think we would see him again in the show. So I think it's very, to me, we're seeing, we are good. We know where Nick Fury is. He has, he's been, I guess, excommunicated, right? He's without everything. He's also, his wife is a Skrull. We found that out at the end there. People are wondering if he knows she's a Skrull. Do you think he knows? I think he knows.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out as well. But I didn't really have the patience to go back and watch the very beginning scene where we see like the flashback to like, was it like 94, 96 or something like that?
When you find out that he's gonna try to help him find a home because they didn't find a place. So yeah.
So I mean, it seems like he would know. Like, he is intimately familiar with the Skrulls. I could easily see him falling in love with. It seems like they've had a very long relationship. So if it was something new, like if it was like a new marriage or something like that, I would maybe lean more of like, it's a secret invasion in his own house. You know?
Yeah, and this is somebody like they were obviously he's been using Skrulls to help keep him above the water, right, in his job as a spy forever. So I assume he would know that. So I think, right, back to it. So I think he is he's excommunicated. He doesn't have the stuff he's going to do before. Like, he doesn't have the resources and everything he's done before. He the villain, we find out, is technically maybe not his son, right, but maybe an adopted son, right, and who feels slighted by him leaving. And then also, Gaia is leaning. I mean, she's going to be wishy-washy either way, but there's some opportunity both ways for this to go. I think we are past, like you mentioned, Act 1, and we're gonna go, but I don't know where it's gonna go from here, right? Like, I don't want it to be a show, a show of just like them dealing with terrorist kind of things, like terrorist girls. I think that would just be laziness at this point going forward. Yeah.
I hope they do make some sort of like narrative pivot that really spins us all around, because I feel like you can almost clock everything that's going to happen, right? You can see that the Skrulls will move their plan along. The quote-unquote good guys will start to get intel and try to sneak in there. And just before, at the very, very end, before they're able to, like, press the button and launch nukes all over the world, they'll shut it down. There'll be a super Skrull that they'll have to fight in.
Well, this been in the trailer a little bit. So we saw someone's powers in the first trailers.
Yeah. I think maybe some sort of superpowered person also has to slot in. I don't know if it's going to be she was introduced in WandaVision and she's going to be in the Marvels.
Monica Rambeau.
Yeah, maybe she'll come in and be the superpowered like pitch hitter, right? That helps him out at the very end. That seems like something that could transition well into the Marvels when he goes back into space, right? But like you're saying, Chris, like you can kind of like see it very easily now, and it's like I want them to take a different direction. And like for me, the tone feels very, very odd in a sense of like I like that they've put Fury on his toes and he has to walk backwards, right? I like seeing him like not being so not executing everything so perfectly right, but it seems like very odd to me. You need to put your heroes back up against the wall, but he seems to be reacting very oddly to things. And I thought like the biggest twist of the episode really was supposed to be the fact that there's 1 million Skrulls on the planet, and Talos has brought them there, and he's been hiding the secret. But it just kind of weirdly just kind of comes out in like a train ride. That seems like a big reveal to just kind of like, oh, I've just been kind of keeping this from you. I know I've been like your biggest confidant, and I've actually been body doubling you for while you've been in the space station. Like, it just seems like if it's going to come up like this, like why? Like, it just kind of seems like apropos of nothing. Like, it was very odd to me.
I think it's supposed to be. To me, and I hope I'm right, I could be very wrong. To me, it's an offhand comment that we're like, oh, 1 million Skrulls, not think about it, because we're going to be getting probably a lot more twists and turns, hopefully, in the next few episodes, where we don't know who is one of these 1 million Skrulls, right? If there's 1 million Skrulls, a lot more people could be Skrulls than we know of going forward, and I think, hopefully, we get some real double, triple, quadruple crossing stuff going on in the show, right? Like real spy level stuff, like Mission Impossible level kind of things. Now, do I have a lot of hope for that? Knowing that this is, I would say this is the tail end of, old Marvel, right? Because this was filmed under Chapek still before everything kind of got moving, under the Iger umbrella. So like, are we going to get that? Is this going to be the last one? I don't know. It could easily play out predictably, like we mentioned. But I think hopefully that it's laid a base for like, okay, well, now we're going to be getting twist after twist after twist, like through this. Hopefully we do. I enjoyed Olivia Colman. I liked her terror, like not terror, like interrogation scene a little bit. Like her confidence in that role is fun to watch. And cutting that guy's finger off was pretty cool. And I think like a quick way, hey, are you a Skrull? I'm just gonna cut your finger off real fast. Double check it. But man, I don't know if you hear it. There's thunder, like storms going on right outside my house.
Oh man, well, it sounds like the timing has worked out really, really well.
But I think I like the second, like you said, the second better than the first one. I hope that they're pointing us to a predictable path, and we do get the rug pulled out from under us a little bit to get there, right? I think that would be very, very thrilling, but at the same time, I hopefully If not, the ending of this sets up some very cool stuff for the future. If I could set it one of two ways to look at it.
Yeah, I'll agree. If things are going the way that they look, and it all plays out exactly how we think it's going to, I'm just not gonna like this show in any way. But if it leans into this whole mysterious secret twists and turns, they have a chance to write it. But yeah, as of right now, I'm not exactly on my Roku remote every Wednesday making sure. Like, I missed it last week. It was like Thursday. I was like, oh, I didn't watch Secret Invasion, I better do that. And then I mean, I know everyone's different, has different priorities, but at the end of the second episode, my wife did look over to me and she was just like, I think you can watch this one without me. So, and I mean, that's, if it's happening to her, it's happening to other people, right? Because we're not all wholly unique and individuals. There's at least other people out there on their couches that are making similar decisions when it comes to watching this show. So if I don't know, if I didn't have to watch the show, I might maybe just wait until they're all out and just binge them all at once.
It seems bingeable. That doesn't, like, I wish this had been a bunch, just released as a bunch, because if I'd seen 1 and 2 together, I think that would have been really cool to watch those back to back really quickly, right? Because to me, 1 and 2, like you mentioned, not to say you're wrong, but 1 and 2 feel like Act 1. 2 and hopefully 3 and 4 are Act 2, and 5 and 6 are Act 3. But like, if I was able to watch those together, like I even said in the first one, if I could watch them all together, it probably would go pretty quickly, and you'd be able to keep track of everything. With it, so.
It's just not building enough steam. That's all. Like, there's just not enough to draw me into the next episode. There's stuff in here that's interesting, right? But it's just like nothing is really compelling me and driving me forward. It's just like, let's get this thing going.
You know what it is, right? It is simply the fact that literally, except for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and that is still iffy, none of these shows are paying off later. Like, none of these shows are paying forward any results to affect the larger MCU that we've been grown accustomed to, right? Like, WandaVision, put Wanda on a dark path, but how quickly did she jump there, right? Like, we didn't even see that journey. We just, like, when we left her, she was, dealing with her remorse, and then, next thing is she's, like, full evil. So, like, isn't this going to matter at the end of the day yet?
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, like, we were just talking about Loki earlier, like, that everything was firing on all cylinders for that show. I mean, we got to see Tom Hiddleston return. He was dead the last time we saw him. Within like the first, I think it's in the first episode, we get to see the Infinity Stones being used as paperweights,
right.
And we're being introduced to like kind of like this whole new kind of like dimension in a way of like the TVA. So like, talk about just a feast for like the eyes and like the senses, right? Whereas this is all predicated off Captain Marvel, which if you look at it objectively, and it's been a while since the movie came out, but if you look at it from an objective sense and you don't look at all like the bullshit that came with like the assholes like review bombing the movie, but like just narratively just not as compelling as something to jump off of from like a miniseries point of view.
Again, change the title from Secret Invasion, which was a book about superheroes being replaced with Skrulls, not your everyday people walking the street, right? And give it a better title, and then also, not only just don't wait so long, don't wait as long to do one of these stories, right? Like, I understand, they don't have their dry erase board planned over years. They are reactionary, and this feels like a reactionary thing rather than an actual like, hey, this we should have planned this when we were writing Captain Marvel, right?
Before we jump off and we wrap up the show, I did think it was pretty interesting that the very first episode, no recap or preamble at the top of it. Beginning of episode 2, what you missed watching Captain Marvel.
It definitely did catch up there. And I think the other thing I would say, the only other title I would have given this is, what if this was called Secret Wars? Or Secret War, Nick Fury's Secret Wars. Like, what if that was the title of this? Would that make more sense? Or
maybe if it was just called like Fury or something like that, since it's so Nick Fury focused, and then you wouldn't have to draw the direct comparisons because that's exactly why I'm already lowering my expectations and expecting Monica Rambeau at the end, like blasting the Super Skrull, then like, I don't know, Sam Wilson flying in and punching somebody like a big name Avenger. I'm curious. They did have the bad guy say like, oh, like what's your plan for the Avengers or something, and he says, oh, I got that covered. I wonder if that's him making the Super Scroll, or if he knows
it's probably
something
Don
else that we don't know.
Cheadle, right? Like my guess is Don Cheadle's the Scroll.
Yeah, maybe.
Like they keep giving Don Cheadle the shit roles and all these things. Like they broke his back in Civil War and all this other fun stuff. But like he's the one firing Fury and putting Fury out of the way. My guess is probably him, because he's the one. Because War Machine, I can't think of the character's name. Rhodey, he talked to Nick of like, why don't we call in the big hitters, kind of thing, right? Like he specifically asked him. So I'm like, he's probably the problem down here. But the last thing, this will be the last thing here. I think you mentioned Sam Wilson. I think Sam Wilson would be the Avengers hero they call into this if it's not Captain Marvel level. If it's not Captain Marvel, it'll be Sam Wilson. And I only say that because they really touched on race and like bias pretty heavily in that conversation between Rhodey and Fury. So I'm like, Sam Wilson really, that's like his message as well right now. So like I could easily see them bringing him in to do that. So I'm not saying it's the best thing to do, but parallel wise I would see them doing that. But anyway, so episode 2 down, episode 3 this week after a holiday weekend. And you're not going to the movie theater, so you'll have time to watch it at home when we had episode 3. I'd like to see where we leave in the middle of the season. I think that'll be interesting to see. So we'll keep you guys posted and come back to it next week. But Mike, I'm going to get out of here before my power shuts off randomly and we get disconnected. So if people know what you're up to, where can they find you at?
Well, they can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and you can read my webcomic at liferewardsrisk.com. Chris, if people want to find out where you are so they can send a tornado your way, where can they find you?
I'd love a good tornado. If you can find me on Instagram at Valdan87 or Valdan, any video game system, since I'm not going to be using Twitter anymore, and I deleted my Reddit account. So, I'm on a roll of detoxing from
He's on a binge.
That's right. If people want to know more about the show, listen to our episodes, where can they get all that good information at?
Well, all you have to do is head on over to superheroslate.com. That is the headquarters for everything we do here on the show. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to fine podcasts. At the end of every episode, I say go like us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But I mean, I feel like at the end of the day, we just like making the show and not so much going online and marketing the show.
Our social media presence is not solid by any means.
Yeah, I think.
Just tell people.
Honestly, I'm at the point now where we just let's just find the tool in WordPress that just automatically posts to these things, so we don't have to worry about it.
Oh, we already do, so you're fine.
Okay.
We got that covered.
But we're out there. You can always tag us. But like we said all the time, we love our super fans of the show. So if you want to be a super fan of Superhero Slate, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and obviously we'll be here every week because we've been here for at least 430 weeks. Yes. So we obviously like doing this kind of stuff. So stick around and see if we like going back to the movies at some point in time.
In the next 4 weeks, you're going to find out which one of us was a scroll the whole time too. So we'll talk to you guys then.
All right, bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.